So, at the end of the day, did Sanji learn something new about the All Blue? How much progress has Nami-chan made in drawing a world map? Definitely Usopp is not a brave warrior yet, so what was the point of all of this? Hey guys, and welcome back to the One Piece Club. Look, I love the Straw Hats like every hardcore One Piece fan. I do, believe me. I've grown up with them and I'm attached to their stories and personalities, right? It's because I love them that I had to make this video. If you love the Straw Hats as much as I do, right, please hit the subscribe button and join the channel, join the crew, and join the One Piece Club. Now, I know YouTube is full of One Piece videos, right? And I promise you that my content is different, okay? So let's continue. Right after the Wano arc, even during the Arno arc, people started criticizing the Straw Hats a lot more. I mean, they've always been under criticism since day one, but not like this. And I usually don't care about the slander like some people are addicted to, but honestly, some of their criticism was legitimate. The situation after Wano got way worse, and I have a hard time thinking about any huge achievements they had after Wano. So let's see, okay? Oh, and one more thing. This video excludes Luffy and Zoro, of course, right? Sanji's biggest achievement on Egghead was literally kicking Saint Saturn and Saint Natsujiro. And recently he just smashed the head of Killingham. Now, the latter, Sanji, is a big achievement. Smashing Killingham, right, or taking Killingham's head, right, is a big achievement, I guess, but not big enough, and I'll talk more about why in a minute. Now, when I look at it now, it seems like Sanji is giving these short spurts of moments of iconic kicks against strong characters, and then disappears for the entire arc. So I'm gonna eliminate him from this video because he needs an entire one for himself. Sanji's situation is really weird. Nami, Usopp, and Robin were basically non-existent, and Robin actually did something against St. Summers, but that's far from her peak against Black Maria. Franky didn't do anything extraordinary on Egghead, given that it was supposed to be his arc. I don't know how much Oda plans to take Franky's recent power-ups with ODC further, but again, that's not enough. The situation is much worse for Brook and Jinbei, who really look like sad characters, especially Jinbei, who just stands there. I have high hopes for Brook's character development through his given story and history with Gunko, but one could say that it's normal, right? There's a lot of characters now in each arc, and the Straw Hats still get their own shining moments on a regular basis. Like, you see, and that is the issue. The Straw Hats have been reduced from the main drivers of the story to just cool characters, like cool, show up, you know. Their stories and ambitions were at the center of the complex plot arc of each arc. But now the story cares more about new characters that appear in each arc and how their past relates to the story, right? Look at this for each character. One by one, Nami was not just a genius navigator whom she kidnapped because of her skills. I know that's not canon, but it still counts. Nami was in fact the only true pirate in the crew. Sanji wasn't a pirate, Luffy was too dumb to be a pirate, and Zoro only cared about fighting, and let's not even talk about Usopp and Chopper. So you could say she was the real brains of the Straw Hats as a pirate crew. She was the one who actually led the directions of the crew on a daily basis. Of course, until Luffy spots an island and forces everyone to land, right? Not just this though, but she was also focused on achieving her dreams, right? And I know that she now cares more about making Luffy the Pirate King, but these two dreams are related. Now, I still haven't seen a single scene where Nami analyzes the rope polyglyphs alongside Robin. And I know that's supposed to be a mystery for the readers, but Oda could show just a glimpse of that. I mean, you have 3 points of a cross and only one is missing. That gives you a lot of information and should help you make some guesses, right? Educated guesses. But her sideline role wasn't the worst thing that happened. The worst thing, now, I want to see a clear intention, and that should come from Robin. I don't know, right? I just feel like the Straw Hats live in a different story was turning her into a fan service character. I've been avoiding this topic for so long, but things got worse recently, and I'm sure the most recent SBS makes people like you and I a little more worried. If you and the publishers wants more fan service, just do it for other characters, bro. Please do it for other characters, not the main ones. By doing so, erasing the identity and background you worked so hard to build over 2 decades. Usopp is by far the most disappointing character in the Straw Hat crew. He had the greatest potential for character development because he was the weakest. The Sogeking moment and using observation haki and Dressrosa should have been the catalyst for this development. But in terms of personality and power, he simply keeps screaming every arc like a coward who once has shown braveness in the past. Elbaph arc truly is Usopp's chance to change. Last chance, by the way. Last chance to change. And I'm not saying he should get rid of his comic character, like his comedic character. But Oda should make him more reliable as part of a Yonko crew. Of course, Luffy doesn't care about this stuff, but we are at the very advanced stages in the world. Plot armor won't save every time. It's not gonna work every time, bro. And Chopper's monster point was turned into another fan service moment. He sort of became One Piece's second face after Luffy, thanks to his cuteness, right? And I don't have a problem with him being cute because that was originally part of his character. But what happened to Monster Point, man? What happened to Monster Point? I know he learned to control his form, but that's it. But at least Chopper's role as a great doctor is still intact. And from time to time, he gets to shine as a doctor. Robin was the only Straw Hat with great experience and more character depth who used to balance the emotional mix of the Straw Hats with her seriousness. She was the wise side of the crew until Oda decided to make her, you guessed again, another fan service tool and a poneglyph reader. Where did her knowledge about the pirates and the world government go? Most importantly, what about history? What about her great interactions with Zoro? Even if you interpret this change as her personality got affected by the Straw Hats after spending this whole time with them, it still doesn't make sense. It was good to see her controversial reunion with Saul, which I hope gives her motivation to be as curious about the Void Century as Vegapunk. Otherwise, the Straw Hats and Luffy will continue to drift towards the mysteries of the Void Century just because that's their destiny. And only side characters are interested in knowing the true history of the world. And that is not good for the last saga. Franky joined as a Straw Hat as their carpenter and inventor. We got excited each time he brought up like an invention or showed up in a new cyborg power-up. But look at him now. I'm not talking about powers, fighting abilities, or whatever. I'm talking about not having Franky work the link that ties the Straw Hats with the technology of the world of One Piece. And most importantly, the ancient weapons. If Robin's role is to bring history and knowledge to the Straw Hats, then Franky's role is to keep the Straw Hats, right, having new technology, giving them new tech. This role, which should be a central part of his personality, was almost killed. We all had hopes to see Franky as the MVP of the Egghead Arc and get a lot of things from Vegapunk. There are a ton of reasons to believe that that should have happened. I know that the recent power-up he got from Lilith is good. That does not add much, right? In fact, if Franky doesn't use this as a chance to improve his cyborg functions or come up with a new idea about Cola as his energy source, then Franky's role might be over. He will move from being an active inventor to someone who just receives technology from someone else and uses it. Like, please, Oda. Oh my, please, Oda. Don't take this role from Franky and give it to Vegapunk. Vegapunk needs to be separated from the Straw Hats. Like, what is the point of having Franky if Vegapunk is on board from 2 or 3 consecutive arcs? I've always felt that something was off with the Straw Hats that joined at a latter point in the story, and I think I can describe it now. See, Brook is an awesome character and I love him. His performance in Whole Cake Island and his backstory are more than enough to make me happy each time he appears. And I still think he's a nigga too, right? He is a character that perfectly balances goofiness and depth, right? I've never looked at Brook as a fighter because he added a huge value to the Straw Hats with his wise statements, right? He often talked like a real experienced pirate, and he is. While he completely blended with the crew's youthful spirit, he used his experience to help the rest of the crew many times. So I was waiting for developments far beyond this. I was waiting for moments where Brook's character will be challenged and put in a difficult situation. But nothing's happened. All that remained from Old Brook is music and his skeleton gags. That's it. Like I said, I'm not looking for new power-ups for Brook. This is a man who lived before the great age of piracy. That's a huge potential. Fortunately, we are seeing some good signs that such developments will actually happen considering his past with Gunko. So his situation is much better than Jinbei. You see? The thing I felt was off was the new Straw Hats having complete stories. You know what I mean? They've already lived through many difficulties and reached a point of maturity for their character. Not maturity as individuals. I'm talking about reaching a point where adding a new plot to the character or to their character profile would be difficult, would be very difficult. This preventing them from having deep interactions with the rest of the young Straw Hats. For example, if Carrot had joined, she wouldn't have faced such a thing. Her story had just begun from Pedro's death. So there's a big room for development. But that does not mean that Jinbei was the same in the past. Jinbei is probably the Straw Hat with the most ideological beliefs. He has more values and more beliefs than any other Straw Hats. The Straw Hats each time face more moral questions and opponents with radical ideologies. Dofi, Aramaki, Kaido, Queen. Why should we stop looking at things from Luffy's point of view? Why not have Jinbei and other characters think deeply about what the enemy says and reply? Jinbei is a perfect character for this. It's not enough for them to simply think that this is either good or bad. I don't want to blame Oda for all of this because some of it was inevitable. The story has stretched too long that marginalizing some of the Straw Hats had to happen. And this is a well-known pattern in shonen series, right? I think Kishimoto realized this problem quickly and decided to get rid of the Konoha 11 early in Shippuden. Everyone criticized him for doing this, but I think that it was actually much better for the story than making the story revolve around them, but not giving them any meaningful development. As the story progressed, Oda had to introduce many characters and had to ensure that they got their proper appearances and backstories. This naturally reduced screen time of the Straw Hats. Now, add to this the fact that the Final Saga is a saga of answers. Answering mysteries requires getting more flashbacks, which makes the focus or story split between the past and the present. The power system too evolves as the story progresses. If you want to keep the fans engaged with the fights and have ascending levels of difficulty for the main characters, you must introduce broken power. Now, obviously, the Straw Hats couldn't keep up with a quick transition from simple armament hierarchy to this tier of power. After Dressrosa, the Straw Hats should have had some great power-ups, but only Sanji got a power-up. Setting the goal of searching for the road poneglyphs right after the arc ended was bad for the Straw Hats, especially the problem of not having more than half of the Straw Hats not being able to use haki. This is a fatal mistake by Oda, to be honest, right? It just forces him to use one plot armor after the other, and we were happy to see Robin use her demonic form because that looked like real haki. Surviving in the new world without haki is absurd. But here is another reason that will shock you, right? The Straw Hats over time have become marketing symbols. They are the face of the franchise. Symbols must be simple, attractive, and memorable. If you add too much depth to the character, it will lose its attractiveness for marketing purposes. Of course, it will be very attractive for readers, but not for the consumers. Just look at all the athletes in the Tokyo Olympics who mimic the poses of Luffy and Franky. Who's Franky? Super, right? Simple, attractive, and memorable. But I'm still optimistic about this, right? My hopes are that after these flashbacks and the final arc kicks in, its heroes will have none other than the Straw Hats. Let me take that back. Yeah, its heroes will be none other than the Straw Hats.